What's up, guys? Welcome back to Watch Chris. I am Chris. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting that bell icon, and of course, hitting that like button if you found this video interesting. Today, we're taking a look at a Nevada Grenchen. This is an integrated bracelet watch, and it's called the F77. It takes inspiration from a vintage Nevada Grenchen model, and this is one of the first integrated bracelet watches that's a reissue that gets a lot of vintage feel. It does have some quirky features, which we'll go through in the video. However, this gives you a definitive vintage feel, which you don't really get from the PRX and the 12. So let's flip the camera and take a look at the F77 from Nevada Grenchen. Nevada Grenchen called this watch the F77. That 77 in the name refers to the year that this watch was originally introduced, or at least the watch that inspired this watch was released. And you can see that this is very similar to that original watch. It has a very similar dimension, and it also has very similar styling. This is in 37 millimeters. So if you look at the playing field here for affordable integrated bracelet watches, this is a little bit bigger than both the 12 from Christopher Ward and the 35 millimeter PRX, but obviously smaller than their 40 millimeter offerings. So this sort of falls in between those two. And this also offers some details that those watches do not offer. And I'm going to go through those right now. First, you're getting a boxed domed sapphire crystal, not a flat sapphire crystal. So this gives this a very vintage feel and a vintage look. And it doesn't add very much to the thickness because this is still 11 millimeters thick. It's an automatic. You're getting a SOPROD movement, the P024, which is essentially ETA clone, very similar to the SW200, which you find in the Christopher Ward 12. This gets an 11 millimeter thickness, including that sapphire crystal, so that is really good. The lug span is around 50 millimeters. That's including the female end links, even though the female end links do not act like female end links, and that's because of the integration into the case. You have this U-shaped end link right here, and then the bracelet fits into that end link, and it doesn't fold down. So you do get a large lug span. However, if your wrist can handle that, this actually wears like a 37 millimeter watch. It's 37 millimeters across, and then you have a 5.8 millimeter crown. The bezel here is also vintage inspired and heavily inspired by the Royal Oak. You have an 8-sided bezel, you have a polished edge, and then you have polished screws that actually screw in that bezel. It looks really nice. You have very high applied indices. Those indices are very high off that dial. They're very thick and they're faceted as well. There's a little bit of lume around the dial as well. And then you have baton hands. Those baton hands have a little black portion down the center and then lume. You have a little bit of a lollipop. It's a rectangular lollipop on that second hand. Again, that is lumed. And then you have an applied logo that is placed within the weave pattern of the dial. And the dial has a beautiful carbon fiber inspired weave pattern, which again is keeping with that original design. The watch that inspired this watch had a very similar dial. And then down at the bottom of the dial, it just says F77. One other detail that this watch gets that the Tissot PRX does not get is a screwed in crown, which is really great. You do get 100 meters of water resistance. Another detail that neither of the other two watches get is an adjustable buckle. And this is sort of a dive style buckle. It works fantastic, and you have tons of positions, 6 positions of micro adjust. So you will get a very good fit for your wrist. The Christopher Ward 12 and of course the PRX do not offer that. This also gets screwed links, which of course, again, the PRX does not offer. And all in all, a very vintage look and a vintage feel. You have an oyster style bracelet, which is all brushed except for the sides, which are polished. The buckle again is really nice as well. You have polishing and brushing, and then the N for Nevada Grenchen on the buckle there, that little shield. It doesn't say Nevada Grenchen, it actually just says Nevada. And again, that's in keeping with that vintage model that I spoke about before. The crown is also signed with that shield, so you have that logo everywhere. A very nicely wearing watch that I will show you on my wrist in just a second. Before we do, I want to talk about price. Price on this watch is $1,260. So that's a little bit more expensive. So I think like $50 or $40 more expensive than the Christopher Ward 12. However, it's a lot more expensive than the PRX, but I think you're getting a lot more watch than you get from the PRX. If you like the look of this watch, if you like the integration of the bracelet, if you don't, then obviously you would go with the PRX, but I think this is a more premium product than the PRX. The bracelet is beautiful and very nicely finished. And this is a big selling point for me, the buckle, because you can get a really good fit on this watch, and it really makes it a true sports watch. It gives you the option to really do anything with this watch, and you could actually adjust it perfectly to your wrist. And there it is on my 7.5-inch wrist. This is the dateless version of the F77. They also offer a date version. That's something that you cannot get from the PRX or the 12. This has a dateless option, which is awesome. And obviously that is the one that I chose. I have a 7.5-inch wrist. This is a 37mm watch. You can see it wears very thin to the wrist, very thin bracelet, really nice clasp. That dome sapphire crystal obviously adds a lot of vintage look to it, and it is thin. It's under 10mm thick. It's around 9mm thick if you don't include that boxed sapphire crystal, but I really like the look of the boxed sapphire crystal. It makes it look different from the other two watches that I just mentioned. I think this has its own style. And here's the lume. It's not incredible. Obviously, the hands are a little bit more liberally applied than the indices. The indices just have tiny little dots, and those fade pretty quickly. But it does have lume on the second hand, which I love to see. You can see that the watch is working in the dark. The hands are more liberally applied, as I mentioned, so they do hang on a little bit longer. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of this watch? How does it compare to the PRX and the 12? I want to hear what you guys think about those watches as compared to this watch. Tell me what you think down in the comments. What do you think of the design? What do you think of the overall look of this watch? Also, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.